So we'll do the prayers and then a little bit of meditation on Tonglen, this time doing Tonglen for another person. And so while doing the prayers and also while doing the meditation, it's good if you can imagine the Buddha in front of you, made of light, radiant. And his face showing an expression of peace and bliss, and also love and compassion for you and for every other living being throughout space. So he spent many lifetimes, many eons, working on creating the causes for enlightenment, especially the collection of merit and wisdom, the two main aspects of the path. And he did all of that with the motivation of compassion and love for every living being, and that includes us. He really understands our suffering and wants us to be free of our suffering and the causes of suffering, the afflictions in our mind. And he wants us to have happiness, every kind of happiness, especially the highest happiness of enlightenment. And he knows how to teach us the way to do that, the causes for enlightenment. So really feel Buddha's love and compassion, and also his knowledge, wisdom, experience. Feel that he is someone we can rely on to get ourselves out of suffering and to get ourselves to the highest state, the highest peace and happiness of enlightenment. And try to have that same feeling, that same attitude that the Buddha had when he was working for enlightenment, caring about all living beings and wanting to help them. So try to make that your motivation for listening to this talk, participating in this session, because here what we're learning about is the Bodhisattva's path to enlightenment. So it's good if we have that motivation of wanting to follow this path, become a Bodhisattva, and then eventually become a Buddha for the benefit of all living beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings, inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. Reverently, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, actual and imagined. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in the merit of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence and turn the wheel of Dharma for living beings. I dedicate my own merits and those of all others to the great enlightenment. This ground, anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamneyatayami. So now while we recite the mantra of the Buddha, imagine light and nectar flowing from the Buddha in front of you, and you can imagine it going out in all directions, reaching all sentient beings throughout the universe. And it fills us completely. Our bodies and minds get filled with the light, which is the Buddha's qualities and realizations in the form of light. So let yourself be filled with that light, that energy. And imagine that it purifies our suffering and the causes of suffering, our negative karma, negative states of mind. Those are not permanent, fixed parts of us. They can be eliminated. We can be free from them by relying on the Buddha and his teachings. I really feel that that is possible, that is doable, to be totally free. Imagine that happening now, being completely free from all suffering and its causes. And the light also nourishes our positive potential, our Buddha nature, all our good qualities, our love, compassion, and wisdom, and so on, so that they can grow and become enlightened qualities. Hayata Om Mune Mune Maha Munaye Soha. Tayata 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 Om Mune Mune Maha Munaye Soha. So before we begin the meditation on Tonglen, let's take a few minutes to remember the reasons for doing this practice and the benefits of doing it. So it's part of a method for cultivating bodhicitta that involves first reflecting on how all living beings are equal in wanting happiness and wanting to not suffer. So everyone has those feelings deep inside their minds, their hearts. Also, from the Buddhist point of view, everyone has the potential to be free of all suffering and its causes, all the afflictive states of mind, such as greed, hatred, and ignorance, and karma. So nobody will be stuck with those states of mind forever. Everyone can be free of them. And everyone has the potential to develop all the positive qualities, love, compassion, wisdom, and become Buddhas. So every living being has Buddha nature, the potential to reach the same state the Buddha achieved, the state of enlightenment or awakening. So in the light of this equality of oneself and everyone else, does it make sense that we regard ourselves as more important, more special than other beings? And also self-centeredness, selfishness is the cause of many, many problems. In fact, the teachings say all the suffering there is in the world comes about due to self-centeredness, selfishness. For example, it leads to negative attitudes, negative karma, which bring more suffering in the future. It's a huge obstacle to making progress on the path and reaching the higher states of liberation and enlightenment. And then the opposite attitude of altruism or cherishing others, genuinely, sincerely caring about others and doing whatever we can to help them, that kind of attitude is the cause of all peace and happiness. It's what motivates us to engage in virtue, like the 10 virtuous actions, not killing, not stealing, and so forth. It's also what lies behind acts of generosity and being patient, being kind and compassionate, helpful for others. So really try to see that self-centeredness is the cause of problems and suffering, while altruism is the cause of genuine peace and happiness, both for ourselves and for others. So by understanding this, we naturally want to decrease self-centeredness and increase altruism. The practice of Tonglen is a very effective method for bringing about that kind of change in our mind. So last week we did Tonglen with respect to our own self, our own future suffering. And this time we'll do it with another person. We'll just start with one person, not all sentient beings. That's a big step. And it's generally easier to use a person we already know and care about. So bring to mind someone you know. It could be a family member or a friend. who is experiencing some suffering right now, physical or emotional or both. And it's good if you can imagine that person in front of you. And then spend a few minutes contemplating what kind of suffering they're experiencing, what kind of problems they're experiencing, and generate a feeling of compassion, wishing that they could be free of these problems. You can also think of problems this person will probably experience in the future as they get older, age-related difficulties, illness, emotional problems, and eventually having to die, leave this life behind. And again, generate compassion. If it's difficult to really feel the compassion, you could try saying a phrase like, how wonderful it would be if you could be free of all your suffering, both present and future, and the causes of suffering. And see if you can make this compassion so strong that you would be willing to take away this person's suffering, take it onto yourself so that they don't have to experience it. And in the Tonglen practice, when we take on suffering, we use it to overcome our self-centered, selfish attitude. So in that way, it's something very meaningful and beneficial. So imagine this person's suffering taking the form of smoke or fog. And imagine it coming out of them. And then you can take it into yourself, either with your breathing it in, or just coming into you in whatever way you like. Imagine it going to your heart chakra, the center of your chest. There, your self-centered attitude is in the form of a black ball or black lump. And when the other person's suffering in the form of smoke comes into you, it turns into a kind of bolt of lightning and crashes down on this black lump of self-centeredness and destroying it, smashing it, making it non-existent. Let your mind rest for a few moments in the feeling of peacefulness, freedom from this nagging, selfish, self-centered attitude that's always demanding that you do things for yourself and not for others. So imagine that kind of mind, that kind of voice disappearing. Now think of all your positive qualities and your good karma, your wealth, resources, your health, your body, all the positive things you have in your life. And imagine those taking the form of a light or a sparkling, wish-fulfilling jewel at your heart, radiating rays of light. And feel the wish to give to this person whatever will bring them happiness and peace. And imagine the rays of light from this light or jewel at your heart going to the other person and transforming into whatever will bring them peace and happiness. You can imagine it becoming ordinary things like the kind of food they like to eat that will make them happy. But more important, imagine it becoming inner qualities that will enable their mind to be in a good state, a positive state, especially in terms of Dharma practice. All the inner qualities they need to be able to engage in the practice of Dharma, the practice of the path to liberation and enlightenment. You can even imagine them gaining all the realizations of the path, enabling them to progress all the way to enlightenment. Imagine the person looking peaceful, calm, happy, radiant. And feel a sense of joy, rejoicing that you did this practice. It's not definite that by doing this practice will bring about any change for the other person. that depends on karma. But by doing this practice, we bring about changes in our own mind. It's a way of purifying our karma and our afflictions and increasing our love and our compassion. It's a way of accumulating a great deal of merit and helping us make progress towards enlightenment. Okay, so could have the slides up on the screen. So this first slide is something that I talked about last week, but there was a question about it, and I found the answer to the question. So we're on the 8th chapter, the final chapter of the Ornament, and this is all about Buddhahood with the 4 Buddha bodies, the 4 kayas. And last week I explained the difference between the term Buddha and Buddha Arya. So it said that all 4 bodies, all 4 kayas are Buddha, but they're not all necessarily Buddha Arya. So the term Buddha Arya is a person. Buddha Arya is a person. And a Buddha could be a person, but not necessarily. It could also be a quality of a Buddha. And so we went through different possibilities of, if there's something that is both Buddha and Buddha Arya, something that's one but not the other, and so on. And so when it came to the 4 kayas, they're definitely all Buddhas. All 4 kayas are Buddhas, but not all 4 of them are persons, a Buddha Arya. And so the last 2 bullet points here say the 2 form bodies, or rupa kayas, complete enjoyment body and emanation body. We haven't really looked at those yet. We'll be looking at those tonight. But anyway, those 2, those are form bodies of a Buddha. Those are both Buddhas and Buddha Aryas. So those are persons. But then when it comes to the 2 truth bodies, the 2 types of Dharmakaya, which are the nature body and the wisdom truth body, those are Buddhas, but not Buddha Aryas. That's the information I got. There may be different opinions about that, but I asked the translator of this text, the translator of the Ornament and the commentaries. She's very knowledgeable about the Ornament for Clear Realizations. Her name is Tosugi from Singapore. And so this is what she said. But again, if you ask another teacher or maybe someone from a different monastery, then they might say otherwise. But this is, anyway, our tradition, our tradition says this. So now we'll go through the 4 kayas. Last week we just introduced enlightenment in general, how a bodhisattva's mind transforms into a Buddha's mind when they become enlightened. And it was also said that all 4 of the Buddha bodies, all 4 of the kayas, are attained at the same time. They're all attained simultaneously in the first moment of enlightenment. So we just kind of looked at general points about enlightenment, and tonight we'll look at the 4 kayas. Okay, so in the Ornament, the first one that's talked about is the nature body. the Svabhavika Dharmakaya. So it could also be called a nature truth body. Dharmakaya is sometimes translated as truth body. So the definition of this is a final sphere possessing the two purities. And I didn't really find an explanation of the meaning of final sphere. I didn't talk about that, but yeah, anyway. The term Dharmadhatu, Dhatu is usually translated as sphere. And Dharmadhatu, that term Dharmadhatu is another term for emptiness. So emptiness or ultimate truth is sometimes referred to as Dharmadhatu. Anyway, let's look at the the divisions of the nature body, and that might become more clear. So again, it's only on the Buddha ground. And there's two divisions of the nature body. The first is a nature body that is a factor of natural purity, meaning free of natural stains. And this is actually the emptiness of true existence of a Buddha's mind. So that's the simple way of saying it. The Buddha's mind has emptiness as its ultimate nature, its ultimate way of being. And so the emptiness of the Buddha's mind, emptiness of true existence of the Buddha's mind, is this first type of nature body. And it says here it's free of natural stains. And the explanation of natural stains is that they are the object of negation, true existence. And they're not really stains because they don't exist. True existence, remember, is something that doesn't exist. It's just a fantasized, mistaken mode of being. But, as long as we're ordinary beings, we see things as truly existent. So true existence does appear to us and we tend to buy into it and believe in it. But in reality, there's no such thing as true existence. And so, yeah, true existence doesn't really exist. And it isn't the case that the mind can be stained by true existence. Yeah, true existence can't stain the mind. However, the appearance of true existence obscures our mind from being able to see its own true nature. Yeah, so because of our ignorance, seeing everything as truly existing, we are unable to see the true nature of our mind, that it's empty of true existence. And so these natural stains, they don't actually stain the mind, but they obscure us from being able to see the mind's true nature, the mind's emptiness of inherent existence, or true existence in this case, yeah. So it's a little hard to understand. It's quite esoteric, abstract, but yeah. But these natural stains are removed by realizing the true nature of things, by realizing emptiness. So when one realizes emptiness, one is able to remove these so-called natural stains, the stains of true existence, and then see the true nature of the mind. So if that may be difficult to understand, but yeah, just try to understand that this first type of nature body is just the true nature of a Buddha's mind. And this emptiness of the mind has been there all along. Before that person became a Buddha, from beginningless time, their mind has been empty of true existence. So emptiness of true existence has been a quality of their mind all along. The whole time they were in samsara, wandering in samsara, confused and deluded and so on, unenlightened. And before enlightenment, the emptiness of the mind is called Buddha nature. It's one type of Buddha nature, the natural abiding lineage. So that emptiness was already there before enlightenment, but it was obscured, like covered. We were unable to see it. But then with the attainment of enlightenment, Buddhahood, one is able to see the mind's true nature. All the veils, all the obscurations have been cleared away. And then that emptiness of the mind is now called the nature body. So that's one of the two types of nature body. The second is a nature body that is a factor of adventitious purity, in other words, free of adventitious stains. So adventitious stains refer to the two types of obscurations that we've talked about all along. The afflictive obscurations, which constitute all the afflictive emotions, the conception of a self-supporting, substantially existent self, and then all the other afflictions, anger, greed, jealousy, pride, and so on. So all those afflictions plus their seeds. So those are the afflictive obscurations. And then the other type of obscuration is called knowledge obscurations or cognitive obscurations or obscurations to omniscience. And in this school, that is the conception of true existence. So that conception of true existence is what prevents the attainment of full enlightenment, Buddhahood. Okay, so all those obscurations are called adventitious stains, and they are removed as the Bodhisattva gains the direct realization of emptiness and then continues to meditate on that again and again, gradually removes all these obscurations. And finally, every bit of obscuration has been removed and they attain full enlightenment. So the freedom or purity of all those adventitious stains, the obscurations, is the second type of nature body. And so these stains do exist. Those stains do exist. Well, they did exist before enlightenment, but then once one is enlightened, they're no longer there in one's mind. And so this second type of nature body is the true cessation or non-abiding nirvana in a Buddha's mind. Okay, so a true cessation in general is an absence of at least a portion of obscurations such that they will never arise again. So from the path of seeing, the first true cessation is attained on the path of seeing with the first direct realization of emptiness. So at that time, a person attains the true cessation of the acquired obscurations. So all the acquired obscurations are eliminated with that first moment of the path of seeing. And the true cessation is the absence of those, having eliminated those. And then there are further true cessations that are attained along the path up to enlightenment. And so enlightenment is the final true cessation. That's when all the obscurations have been totally eliminated. Nothing left to purify. So that's the Buddha's true cessation. It's a true cessation of enlightenment. And it's also called the non-abiding nirvana. That term non-abiding nirvana is the kind of nirvana a Buddha attains. And it means a Buddha does not abide either in samsara, cyclic existence, nor in solitary peace, the ordinary nirvana attained by hearers and solitary realizers. So the Buddha's nirvana is such that they don't abide in neither samsara nor solitary peace, Arhat's nirvana. So those are the two aspects of the nature body. And both of them are permanent. The first one is the emptiness of the Buddha's mind, and emptiness is always a permanent phenomena. And the second one is this is true cessation. A true cessation is also a permanent phenomena. So both of these are permanent phenomena, but there's a difference. The first one is an ultimate truth, because ultimate truth, according to this school, is emptiness of true existence. So that's an ultimate truth. But the second one, this is another difference between Svatantrika and Prasangika. According to Svatantrika, a true cessation is a conventional truth, not an ultimate truth. And the reason for that is, they say a true cessation is, the absence of obscurations, having eliminated a certain amount of obscurations. And obscurations are themselves conventional truths. They are conventional truths. So they think that the absence of those, the elimination of those, should also be a conventional truth. That's their reasoning. That's their view. However, Prasangika has a different view. And according to Prasangika, a true cessation is an ultimate truth, is an emptiness. So, but here we're on Svatantrika. According to Svatantrika, the first type of nature body is a ultimate truth, but the second type of nature body is a conventional truth. But both are permanent. Okay, so then the second body is called the wisdom truth body. It's on the next slide. Last time I was calling it the exalted wisdom truth body, but I decided to make it simpler, just wisdom truth body. And in Sanskrit is Jnana Dharmakaya. So the definition of this is an exalted knower that is a final insight relative to modes and varieties. So in brief, this is the Buddha's mind. This is omniscient mind, enlightened mind. And again, it's the highest possible mind that there could be. Mind that's completely free of all obscurations and knows all all phenomena, whatever exists, both conventional truths and ultimate truths. And these terms in the definition, modes and varieties, I mentioned last time, the term modes refers to ultimate truth, emptiness, and I think it's called modes because that's the ultimate mode of existence of phenomena, their emptiness of true existence. And the term varieties refers to conventional truths because they are so many diverse, different kinds of phenomena included in conventional truths. So that expression, modes and varieties, is something that appears in the traditional texts, and it just refers to ultimate truths and conventional truths. So the Buddha's mind is a final insight, like the highest possible insight into all modes and varieties. So it's said that, yeah, Buddha's mind sees all phenomena, all ultimate truths, and all conventional truths simultaneously with every moment. Although I guess there seems to be different views about this. According to Jetsun Chukyi Gelsen, who's the textbook writer of Sangye Monastery, what most of my teachers studied at. According to him, every consciousness in the continuum of a Buddha Arya is a wisdom truth body and an exalted knower of all aspects that realizes all phenomena. And so what that means is even the Buddha's 5 sense consciousnesses, because a Buddha still has 6 types of mind, just as we do. Eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mental consciousness. Buddha still has 6 types of consciousness. And so Buddha still has an eye consciousness and an ear consciousness and so on. And so according to Jetsun Chokyi Gyaltsen, even the Buddha's eye consciousness, when the Buddha is, seeing a visual object, that eye consciousness also sees all phenomena. It's an omniscient mind, directly perceiving all phenomena, all conventional truths and all ultimate truths. So that means the Buddha's eye consciousness can perceive sounds and smells and tastes and everything. That would be really cool. However, apparently other scholars disagree with that and say that the Buddha's sense consciousnesses, like the 5 sense consciousnesses, are not omniscient minds. They don't know all phenomena. So that's a different points of view about that. So again, this type of body of the Buddha exists only on the Buddha ground. Nobody, no being prior to Buddhahood is able to have this kind of mind. Only a Buddha's mind is able to see all phenomena at the same time, simultaneously, with every moment. And it has 21 divisions. We won't go into all of them, but these are, they're mentioned in the root text, Maitreya's Ornament. These are called 21 sets of uncontaminated, exalted wisdom of the Buddha ground. And just to give you a few examples, the first one is the 37 harmonies with enlightenment. So we just briefly looked at those when we went through the 173 aspects of it in chapter 4. And another set is the 4 immeasurables. So each of these sets, as you can see, contains many elements as well. And these, like just these examples here are not necessarily only in the mind of a Buddha. Like before Buddhahood, hearers and so forth can have the realizations of the 37 harmonies with enlightenment and the 4 immeasurables and so on. So those can exist before Buddha ground. However, when they exist in the mind of a Buddha, like the 4 immeasurables in the mind of a Buddha, would be different than the 4 immeasurables in the mind of a bodhisattva or a hearer, because the Buddha's mind is totally pure, free of all obscurations, free of all faults, and omniscient, and so on. So here it's talking about those particular qualities or realizations that exist in the mind of a Buddha. So these first 2 kayas, the nature body and this one, the wisdom truth body, are sometimes subsumed into one, which is called a Dharmakaya. So there's these different ways of enumerating the bodies of a Buddha. Sometimes one, in Jeffrey Hopkins' Meditation on Emptiness, that book, he mentions, sometimes 1 body, sometimes 2 bodies, 3, 4, and even 5. There may be other ways of enumerating them as well. But one one way that's often explained is in terms of two bodies. Oh, no, don't go there yet. That's something else. Yeah. So sometimes they talk about two bodies, and the two bodies are the Dharmakaya and the Rupakaya. So the Dharmakaya refers to the Buddha's mind and the emptiness of the Buddha's mind. So that means the nature body and the wisdom truth body are sometimes, put together in one and called the Dharmakaya. And then the other is the Rupakaya, or form bodies, and that includes the other two bodies we'll look at a bit later. The bodies that a Buddha emanates in order to help sentient beings. Okay, so the next slide. So in the text, in the Ornament and its commentaries, after going through the 21 sets of uncontaminated exalted wisdom, there's this debate, and it's very lengthy, and it's been going on for centuries. And I'll just give you the summary of this debate. So it started with Indian scholars who wrote commentaries to the Ornament. And the debate is about the number of bodies, their kayas, that Maitreya is talking about in the Ornament, like especially the first 6 verses of chapter 8. That's when he starts talking about the different bodies. And so when you read those verses, it's not 100% clear how many bodies he's talking about there. And so that's why different scholars, different commentators came up with different numbers. Some say he's talking about 3 bodies, and others say he's talking about 4 bodies. And apparently this debate is continuing up to today. Still, like in Tibet, when these teachings came to Tibet, the different scholars in Tibet took sides, and one said, yeah, there's 3, others said 4. So anyway, I'll start with the 4 bodies because that's probably the one we're more familiar with. This is actually Lama Tsongkhapa. He agrees with those who say there are 4 bodies. And so going back to the Indian scholar, Haribhadra, Arya Haribhadra, who lived in the late 8th century. This is in his commentaries. He wrote several commentaries to the Ornament. So this is how he explained. And the 4 bodies are the ones we're going through here: the nature body, wisdom truth body, complete enjoyment body, and emanation body. So Haribhadra says Maitreya is talking about 4 bodies. And the 3rd bullet point in that column says all 4 bodies are one entity, but the wisdom truth body is different from the other 3. So this is actually a question that came up, I think last week. Somebody asked the question of, are all the 4 kayas one entity? And so, yeah, apparently they are one entity. But as I was reading through my notes from when I studied the Ornament, I came across a discussion that we had in our class. And one student asked our teacher, how is it possible that all the 4 bodies can be one entity? Because, for example, the complete enjoyment body, we haven't gotten there yet, but the complete enjoyment body is said to be in Akanishta Pure Land. And then the emanation bodies are here, like in our world. So they're in different places. How can we say they are one entity? So our teacher said, oh, the reason they're said to be one entity is because they are one entity in being empty of true existence. So from the point of view that they are all empty of true existence, then they're said to be one entity. But then the student said, oh, but then you could say that for all phenomena. You could say my body and the exalted wisdom truth body are one entity because we're both empty of true existence. And our teacher said, well, yeah, that's true, but we wouldn't really say that. It would be strange to say that my body and the Buddhist body are one entity. It's true that, I mean, all phenomena are one entity in that sense, because all phenomena are empty of true existence. So anyway, we had kind of a lot of discussion about that. But yeah, anyway, just to know when it says that all four bodies are one entity, the meaning of that is they're all empty of true existence. And then the last bullet point is, yeah, so I said the first 6 verses of chapter 8, the verse 1 clearly talks about the nature body. And then verses 2 through 6, those are the ambiguous verses. They actually list all these uncontaminated qualities. And at the very end of those 5 verses, it says something like the truth body. This is the truth body. So Haribhadra, the way he interprets those verses is that they're showing the wisdom truth body with its 21 sets of uncontaminated wisdom, which is what we just looked at briefly. So verse 8.1 is talking about the nature body, and then verses 8.2 to 8.6, they are talking about the wisdom truth body with these 21 sets of uncontaminated wisdom. That's how he reads the text. And so he says Maitreya is talking about 4 bodies. And then afterwards, of course, there's the other bodies, the complete enjoyment body and emanation body. Those come later after verse 6. Now, the other side, so Arya Vimuktisena was, when did he live? Early 6th century. So he was actually prior to Haribhadra. He's in the Lamrim lineage. You may have come across his name before. He's one of the Lamrim lamas. And yeah, he wrote at least one important commentary to the Ornament. And so his view is that there's just 3 kayas. Maitreya is just talking about 3 kayas, and the 3 are the nature body, the complete enjoyment body, and the emanation body. So he leaves out the wisdom truth body. And he says the wisdom truth body is included in the nature body. It's not that he's leaving it out. It's not that he's denying its existence, but he's just saying it's included in the nature body. So Maitreya is including it in the nature body. And so his interpretation of those first 6 verses in chapter 8 is that they're only talking about the nature body, first briefly in verse 1, and then more extensively in the next few verses. And those uncontaminated qualities, that 21 sets of uncontaminated qualities, those are all qualities of the nature body, not the wisdom truth body. So he's saying those 21 sets of uncontaminated qualities is not talking about another body, the wisdom truth body. It's just talking about uncontaminated qualities of the nature body. So I don't know if that makes any sense to you. In the text, there's a very, very lengthy, extensive explanation of this whole debate, because each side has reasons. They have, very good reasons, and also scriptural authority, and, they're not just saying this for no reason. They do have, reasons for their point of view. And there's actually a book. It's called Buddhahood Embodied by John McCransky. And it's quite a scholarly book. It's based on a doctoral dissertation that he did on this very debate. We have a copy here, and I started reading a little bit of it, but it's like, whoa, very small print, hundreds of pages. But yeah, he really goes into, he did a lot of research into this. Apparently goes into it's not just a simple thing, but quite complex. And it's important too, because it's all about Buddhahood. It's what exactly is a Buddha. And in the introduction, he says that there's this sort of, he calls it a tension, but how you can say that on the one hand, a Buddha is completely free of all obscurations and all the negative things of samsara. He's totally free of all that. And yet he's still able to be in the world and work in the world and help sentient beings. So, you know, how to explain that? Different scholars over the centuries have come up with different ways of explaining that. And this debate about bodies, how many bodies there are and what they are, how they work, and so on and so forth, is all part of that. So we just come along and we're told by our lamas, oh yeah, these are the 4 bodies and they this and this, and we just accept that. But there's a lot more to it than that. And because of different scriptures and different assertions by different scholars, then, you know, it's not so simple. That's as much as I understand. I'm just letting you know that there is this this debate, this controversy, you might say, about the number of bodies, and not everybody is on the same page. Not everybody agrees with it. I know when we were studying this, what I found really strange is, why would they leave out the wisdom truth body? That's the most important one. I mean, the Buddha's mind. It's because the Bodhisattva's mind attains enlightened mind, omniscient mind, and then all these other things come about, like the form bodies being able to emanate in these different forms, and the emptiness of the Buddha's mind. And if you don't have the Buddha's mind, you can't have the emptiness of the Buddha's mind. So that's what I found puzzling. You know, if you're going to leave out one of the bodies, it doesn't make sense to leave out the wisdom truth body. But that, you know, I probably don't know all the details of the argument and the debate and so on. So it is a complex issue. And if you want to know more about it, there is that book you can find, Buddhahood Embodied. Okay, so now let's go on to look at the next one, the complete enjoyment body, or Sambhogakaya. So this is one of the form bodies. The definition is a final form body possessing the 5 certainties. So the 5 certainties are, first, certainty of abode, where it resides, and it resides only in akanishta. So akanishta means not low. That's a sort of literal meaning of it. And it's the name of one of the 17 levels of the form realm. So I've got a chart on the next page. Actually, we could go and look at that first. That might help. Look at the next slide. So this is the form realm, all the divisions of the form realm. And at the bottom is the first concentration, which one can be born into as a result of cultivating the first concentration based on calm abiding. And then, there are beings who've done that, who've cultivated the first concentration, and then they're able to be born in the first concentration. And that has 3 levels. And second concentration also has 3 levels. Third concentration has 3 levels. The fourth concentration has many levels. I'm reading from the bottom. The first one is called cloudless. The second one is called born from merit. And the third is called great result. And within that third one is this other realm, which is called without discrimination. And that is, the reason it's called that is because When they say when you're born there, the first moment of your life, you have awareness, you have normal kind of mental activity. And then you just go into this sort of mindless, it's not really mindless, but just this unaware state for your entire life, your entire existence there, until the end of your life, when your karma runs out to be there, you die. Again, you have one moment of awareness, and then you're in the next life. So your whole life passes with without normal awareness. It's actually mentioned in the Precious Human Rebirth, one of within the 8 freedoms and 10 endowments. One of the 8 unfree states is actually this particular realm, because if you're born in that realm, you can't do anything. You can't practice dharma, you can't increase your wisdom, and so on. So it's really like a dead end spiritually. Anyway, so that's included in the third one. And so those 3, 1, 2, and 3, those are places where ordinary beings take birth as a result of cultivating the 4th concentration, that mental state, and then they can take birth in those 3. And then the next 5 above that, these are called pure abodes, and only Aryas are able to take birth in those abodes. And they do so there's a certain kind of meditative practice that they do called alternating concentrations, where they are able to move their mind back and forth between a contaminated concentration and an uncontaminated concentration, like switching back and forth really fast, which is apparently extremely difficult to do. But if you have the ability to do that with your mind, then you are able to be born in one of these Arya pure abodes. So there are 5 of those. We don't need to go through all the names, but the top one, number 5, is Akanishta. So that's just to give you an idea where Akanishta is. So it's the highest level within the form realm, and it's also a pure abode within the form realm. However, what they say is there are actually 2 Akanishtas. So one is this Arya pure abode, where Aryas, ordinary Aryas, well, it's such a thing as an ordinary Arya. Well, maybe here Aryas can be born there. But then there's another Akanishta, which is called densely arrayed Akanishta. And that is where the Sambhogakaya abides. Okay, so it's a very special special location. And they say that the 2 Akanishtas are a bit like a town and a monastery outside of a town. Yeah. So the ordinary Akanishta, the one that's here in the form realm, is like the town. And then the other Akanishta, where the Sambhogakaya abides, is like a little bit outside, like a monastery outside. So it's kind of complicated, but I just thought you might want to know something more about Akanishta. So let's go back to previous slide. So this is one of the certainties of the complete enjoyment body. It's only found in Akanishta, the densely arrayed Akanishta, the Akanishta, which is a pure land. And in fact, that's where a bodhisattva is in their final life before enlightenment, according to Sutrayana, the Sutrayana system. So a bodhisattva who's following the Sutrayana or Paramitayana path to enlightenment, as opposed to the Tantrayana path, they're spending, again, 3 countless great eons working their way to enlightenment. So in the very last life, just before enlightenment, they're on the 10th ground, and they are born in this Akanishta. And so that's where they are when they attain enlightenment. So they're already there, and then the mind attains enlightenment, and then their body becomes the Sambhogakaya. Does that make sense? And so, yeah, and so then the Sambhogakaya remains there. And the second certainty is certainty of body. It's adorned with clear and complete signs and exemplifications. Sometimes they're called major and minor marks. So there's 32 signs or major marks and 80 exemplifications or minor marks. So, there's certain features of the body that a Sambhogakaya has, and also a Supreme Nirmanakaya, which we'll look at next, that also has those 112 marks. And in the Ornament, it goes through, it's a very lengthy chapter, goes through all the 32 major marks and the 80 minor ones and their causes, like what a bodhisattva does, the practices they do to have those marks and signs. And it's also said that the bodhisattva, in their last life, just before enlightenment, and they're in Akanishta, and they have a body that is like the Sambhogakaya. It has these 112 marks, 32 major and 80 minor marks, but they're said to be not so clear. Before enlightenment, they're there, but they're not completely clear. And then when their mind makes that last, eliminates the last bit of obscurations to enlightenment, and then their mind becomes the Dharmakaya, the enlightened mind of a Buddha, and then their body already looks like a Sambhogakaya, but then all these marks and signs become very clear. And then the third certainty is certainty of Dharma. Certainty of retinue. It's surrounded only by Arya Bodhisattvas, Bodhisattva Aryas. So only Arya Bodhisattvas are born in this particular place, a densely arrayed Akanishta. So they're probably Bodhisattvas who are getting very close to enlightenment and just need more instructions, more guidance from the Sambhogakaya to be able to complete their path and reach full enlightenment. And number 4 is the certainty of Dharma. So the Sambhogakaya teaches only Mahayana Dharma. So Buddha will normally teach, all the 3 vehicles, hearers, solitary realizers, and Bodhisattva. But the Sambhogakaya, because of this special situation, being in this Pure Land and surrounded by Arya Bodhisattvas, is teaching only the Mahayana Dharma to those Bodhisattvas. And it said that the reason it's called Complete Enjoyment Body, I used to wonder about that. It's kind of a strange name, Complete Enjoyment Body. So the reason it's called that is because it enjoys the Mahayana Dharma together with the retinue of Bodhisattvas, Arya Bodhisattvas. So that's what it enjoys. And then the fifth certainty is certainty of time. It remains as long as cyclic existence is not empty. That's kind of a funny expression, but that's how it is in the text. It means as long as there are still sentient beings who are in samsara, who haven't been free of samsara, as long as there's still some samsara around, some sentient beings experiencing samsara, then the Sambhogakaya will remain. It will not disappear. And there's apparently a lot of debates about samsara coming to an end. How long will that take? That's a common question when I'm teaching introductory courses. People say, when is samsara going to end? Even if it has an end, that's a subject of debate. Does it have an end or not? So our tradition says there is an end to samsara, but it's difficult to say when, to put a, actual date on it. And the reason for saying that there is an end to samsara is because there's no sentient being you can point to and say, this sentient being will never become free of samsara. This sentient being's samsara will never end. So there's nobody you can point to and say that. But to actually say when that's going to happen, when every single sentient being has been free of samsara, is not possible to say.
In the Sutrayana presentation, is it that all bodhisattvas are in that one Akanishta, or they create their own Akanishta that they then they have their own pure land as a Buddha, or is that the tantric?
No, that comes up as well. It's not really clear to me what that means, but it seems like each bodhisattva does create their own pure land where they will become enlightened. It's mentioned. So we didn't get around to asking our teacher, so does that mean there's lots of akanishtas? Yeah, it could be one of those questions that's hard to answer. But yeah. Because earlier in the text, I didn't mention it here, but there's a whole thing about a bodhisattva purifying their own pure land, meaning, purifying the place where they will become enlightened and help. Now, there's two different things. That's right. I remember, I think there's a Sambhogakaya pure land, and then there's Nirmanakaya pure land. There's different pure lands. I'd have to go back and look at that, but it's not something I remember clearly. But yeah, this thing about pure lands and pure abodes is very complicated. And there is a difference too. I did want to mention that when we looked at the chart, we can go to that slide on the next slide. That chart on those, the Arya pure abodes that are in the fourth concentration. So the term there is pure abode. And those are places where Aryas can be born, even here Aryas, solitary real. No, I don't know about solitary realized, but anyway, definitely here Aryas can be born there while they're still working their way to nirvana. So those are called pure abodes. But then there's another term, which is pure land. And a pure land is, here I have some notes. Yeah, so a pure abode is actually still in samsara. Even though you have to be an Arya to take birth there, it's still part of samsara. These are samsaric realms. But pure land, a different term, pure land, they are not in samsara. They're established by bodhisattvas, manifested through the power of their unshakable resolve and prayers.
Stephen has a question. This online Stephen.
Oh, yeah. Stephen, you want to ask your question?
Thank you, Venerable, and the kind person who noticed my my hand. So just a question about the 32 marks and the major marks and minor marks. When we look at a tanka or a statue or something like that, we can see like some of these are depicted, like the size of the earlobes of a Buddha or the crown protrusion and so on. So are we basically looking at Nirmanakaya portrayals when we look at a tanka or a statue? I'm sorry, Sambhogakaya portrayals, or do Nirmanakaya emanations of Buddhas also manifest these marks and signs?
Supreme Nirmanakaya, we're not there yet, but there's 3 different kinds of Nirmanakaya. So one type, the Supreme Nirmanakaya, also has the 32 major and 80 minor marks. So Shakyamuni Buddha is an example of supreme Nirmanakaya. So he did have those marks and signs, although not everyone would be able to see them. When, people needed a certain level of mind and purification of mind and karma to be able to see those marks and signs. So even if Buddha's right there in front of you, there's no guarantee you will see those marks and signs. So as far as tankas go, I'm not sure. I mean, just vaguely, what I recall is when a tanka of Buddha, for example, and he's depicted with robes and bowl and, monk aspect, that aspect of Shakyamuni Buddha is the Nirmanakaya, supreme Nirmanakaya form. But sometimes, I can't remember exactly where I've seen this, but sometimes a Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, is depicted with like a crown and, ornaments, quite different than the monk aspect. And I've heard it said, oh, that's the Sambhogakaya aspect of Shakyamuni Buddha. I can't say I fully understand that, but yeah. So it makes it sound that, yeah, in some cases, a tanka might show a Nirmanakaya form or a Sambhogakaya form, even of the same person, like Shakyamuni Buddha. And speaking of signs and exemplifications, the next slide has just some examples of those. So a sign, the difference between these, sign and exemplification, a sign is said to be an excellent quality that signifies that the person who has it is an excellent being. That's the meaning of a sign. So shows that the person is an excellent being. So one example, the first example of the 32 is having 1,000-spoked wheels on the palms of the hands and the soles of the feet. And these are not tattoos. They are, part of the body, part of the holy body. And that particular sign of a Sambhogakaya or Supreme Nirmanakaya form is the result of having, for many, many lifetimes, having seen off, like receiving and seeing off your gurus, like we often do when a teacher is either coming to teach or they're leaving to go out there with katas and incense and, respectfully receive them or see them off. And also offering service to gurus. So having done those practices over many, many lifetimes, then as a result of that, that's the sign. And then the exemplification, sometimes called minor marks, there are 80 of those. So those are said to be excellent qualities that lets others know that the person is an excellent being. So they're an indication to others. So one example of an exemplification is copper-colored nails. And again, this is natural. It's not the result of putting on nail polish. Nowadays, you can make your nails any color you want with all kinds of designs on them. But for Buddha, it's a natural color. And the cause of that is having separated from attachment to all compounded phenomena. So, like I say, in the ornament, it does go through all of these 112 marks and gives their causes. It's quite inspiring, actually, just to read about what a Buddha, what a Bodhisattva did for so many lifetimes to have these different qualities. Okay, so then next, the last body we're looking at is the emanation body, or Nirmanakaya. And this is defined as a final form body distinguished by not possessing the 5 certainties. But that doesn't mean it can't have any of the 5 certainties. It could have some of them, but it doesn't have all 5. So for example, it could be an Ekanishta. Yeah, it's possible it could be an Ekanishta. It's possible it could have the major and minor marks, but it just doesn't have all 5. So in general, this is the kind of form body a Buddha will manifest to help ordinary beings who are not Arya Bodhisattvas. So only Arya Bodhisattvas are able to see the Sambhogakaya and receive teachings from a Sambhogakaya. So for those who are not Arya Bodhisattvas, which includes all of us, ordinary beings, but also hearers and solitary realizers, even the Arhats, they cannot see the Sambhogakaya. So for them, the Buddha will manifest in these different forms. So there's 3 types of emanation body. The first is called an artisan emanation body. And the example, this is the only example I've heard of this, but there probably are many others. The Buddha once emanated in the form of a lute playing Gandharva. Gandharva, I think it's a smell eater, isn't it? Smell eater, Gandharva. Yeah, it's some kind of being in another realm, somewhat celestial. I think they're called celestial musicians. That's right. And he did this, so he emanated in the form of this Gandharva who played a lute, and he did this to subdue the pride of the king of Gandharvas. So the king of Gandharvas could play this musical instrument, and he was quite proud of himself. He thought he was the greatest, and so to help this king subdue his pride, the Buddha manifested as this other Gandharva who could play the lute, and they had a contest. And gradually, they were both playing really well, but then they started taking strings off their lute. And even with, in the end, I think just with 1 string left on his lute, the Buddha could still make incredibly beautiful music. And so finally the Gandharva king gave in and he said, okay, you're better than me. So his pride was subdued. So that's how the story goes. It's quite cute. But yeah, so the Buddha could manifest as a musician or as an artist, or yeah, I haven't heard other examples besides that one, but and the second type is called a birth emanation body. And examples of this could be emanating as an animal or as a human being, like a doctor, or is it even inanimate objects like a tree or a bridge or a god in Tushita Pure Land. So just about any kind of any kind of form that would be beneficial. The only reason Buddha would manifest in different forms is if it would be a benefit to sentient beings, help them learn the Dharma, get on the path. And so this is actually, I mentioned last time that when the Bodhisattva becomes enlightened, and before they're enlightened, they'd already been sending out a whole lot of emanations. Yeah, like right from the path of seeing, the first ground, they start sending out emanations. And by the time they reach the 10th ground, just before enlightenment, they're able to send out a huge number, an inexpressible number of emanations. And so when the Bodhisattva finally becomes enlightened, all those emanations that they send out, they become Nirmanakayas. And it would be this second type, the birth emanation body. Although our teacher said, I think somebody asked about this, he said some of those bodhisattva emanations become emanation bodies, but not all of them. It depends on the necessity of the occasion. It's not necessary for some of these emanations to remain, so they will be gathered back into the emanator in Akanishta. So possibly some of the emanations that the bodhisattva had sent out have finished their work and don't need to be there anymore. And so they would be absorbed back into the person who's in Akanishta. They don't need to become emanation bodies. So then the third type is the supreme emanation body. And an example of that is Shakyamuni Buddha. So this is the type of emanation body that performs the 12 deeds. So there's this explanation of 12 different deeds of a Buddha who comes into the world like Shakyamuni did. Before being in this world, Shakyamuni Buddha was said to be in Tushita, Pure Land, teaching the gods. And then it was time, you know, this world, the people in this world, the beings in this world were ready to have a supreme emanation body come and turn the wheel of Dharma. So then the Buddha came and took birth to Queen Maya and so on, and then performed all those 12 deeds. So this type of emanation body also has the 112 marks, and it arises when there are beings with pure karma to receive the supreme emanation body. And it's said that from among the 1,000 Buddhas who will arise during this fortunate eon, only Shakyamuni Buddha will display the supreme emanation body during the period when the human lifespan is 100 years. So it's said that, you know, the human lifespan varies. It can go up to very high, like 1,000 years, and also very low, like 10 years. So during the time when the human lifespan is around 100 years, that's Shakyamuni Buddha made the promise that he would come into the world and teach the Dharma during such a time. Other Buddhas say, oh, I'll come in the world when the lifespan is 1,000 years. Then there's more time. People have more time. Something like that. So Shakyamuni Buddha is considered extremely compassionate to be willing to come into our world at this time when our lifespan is only 100 years, which is kind of a degenerate time. So the two form bodies, the complete enjoyment body and the emanation body, although they're called form bodies, but they're actually not made of matter, like atoms, cells, and so on. And what our teacher explained was they're established from forms that are self-appearances of the wisdom truth body. And I tried to find an explanation of self-appearance, but I couldn't. So, but somehow the wisdom truth body, the Buddha's mind, Dharmakaya, will appear in these forms, but they're not gross matter like our bodies, although they may appear that way. Yeah, they could appear like gross bodies, gross form, but they're not actually. They're appearances of Dharmakaya. Okay, so there's just one topic left in this. It's not really a topic, but yeah, and subject in this chapter, and it's called Exalted Activities. And I couldn't find the Sanskrit term, but the Tibetan term is Chunle, and that's a special term for activities of Buddhas, enlightened beings. So these are very positive qualities that arise from the wisdom truth body, the Buddha's mind, Dharmakaya, and that is their cause. So the Buddha's mind, wisdom truth body is the cause of these qualities. And it said, just as the wisdom truth body is uninterrupted, meaning it just exists continuously without interruption. These activities are uninterrupted as long as samsara exists. So these occur, or these arise to benefit sentient beings. And because the Buddha's mind, the Buddha's omniscient mind, fully enlightened mind, knows sentient beings. The Buddha knows our minds and knows our dispositions and our karma and all the different aspects of our mind and our needs and so on. And so the Buddha is able to know when it's an appropriate time to manifest in a certain form, give us a certain teaching, and help us in a certain way. And my understanding is that this just happens spontaneously. It's said that a Buddha's mind doesn't have any thoughts. It doesn't have conceptions. Every experience of a Buddha's mind is direct perception. So they don't think like we do, we have to think and plan and organize. So Buddha, that isn't the case with the Buddha. It's just spontaneously, as a result of their immense merit that they've accumulated over such a long time and all their wisdom and other qualities. So just spontaneously and effortlessly, the Buddha will manifest different forms and do these different activities for the benefit of sentient beings. And so there's 27 of these exalted activities, and they're put into two groups. The first group are activities to set trainees on the path, meaning helping sentient beings get on the path. And so of the 27 activities, the first 26 are those, helping sentient beings get on the path, such as an example is setting them in the attitude of seeking liberation. So that means helping sentient beings to generate the wish to get out of samsara. And in that way, that's when they first enter the path. And then from there, helping them attain the path of seeing, helping them attain the first ground, the second ground, and so on and so forth. So, and the way that the Buddha will help sentient beings do that is by giving them teaching. So it's not that they pick sentient beings up and plant them on the path, but they teach them and guide them and help them generate the appropriate mental states to be able to do that. And then the second group is setting trainees in the result of the path, and that means setting them in non-abiding nirvana. So helping them reach the final goal, full enlightenment, which is also called non-abiding nirvana. And if you want to know all 27 of these, they're in Courageous Compassion, which is volume 6, I think. Volume 6 of the Library of Wisdom and Compassion. So it just mentions the 27, doesn't give explanation of them, but okay, so that pretty much, just quickly going through the main points. And then right at the end of the text of the ornament, there's a couple of verses which summarize the main points of the text in a few different ways. One way of summarizing them is in 3 points, and this is quite similar to what we looked at right at the beginning in the very first talk. And the 3 points are objects, causes, and result. So for objects, there's 3 types of objects to be cultivated. Those are the 3 exalted knowers, which are the subjects in the first 3 chapters: exalted knower of all aspects, knower of paths, knower of bases. So those are called objects to be cultivated, although they're actually subjects because they're minds, they're realizations that a practitioner wants to develop within themselves. So those are the things to be cultivated, to be developed, to be attained in one's own mind. And then the next point, number 2, is 4 applications that cultivate them. And these are the subjects of chapters 4 through 7, the 4 types of applications: application in complete aspects, peak application, serial application, and instantaneous application. So those are practices the Bodhisattva engages in, meditative practices, to cultivate and attain the 3 exalted knowers. So they are the causes of the 3 exalted knowers. So that's explained in chapters 4 through 7. And then finally, the truth body, Dharmakaya, along with exalted activities. So that's the result. The result of all this practice, the 4 applications, developing the 3 exalted knowers, is the truth body, Dharmakaya, Buddhahood, enlightenment. So that's explained in chapter 8. So that kind of wraps up. That's what the ornament is all about. And we looked at some of the main points of the ornament, and hopefully you have a better idea of it, maybe even inspired to study it in greater depth. There was one other question that came up last week. Steve asked about, I can't remember exactly how you phrased it, but the way I understood it, and I've been thinking about it and checking it out, is if an Arya, okay, so a person is an Arya, and they've already gained the direct realization of emptiness, and then if they want to go back into meditation on emptiness, do they need to meditate on the emptiness of a certain object, like one's own self or the table or your body or whatever, or can they just go straight into emptiness? That was how I understood the question. I don't know if that's what you intended. And I did have a chance to ask Lama, a Geshe, but I asked a few people. I asked Venerable Children, and she wasn't completely sure, but she said it would make sense that a base comes to mind first, so that then they perceive the emptiness of that base. Yeah, to be able to understand that emptiness, you have to first think of the basis of emptiness, because emptiness is always the emptiness of something. There isn't just this free-floating emptiness, that's not connected with some base, some object that is empty. So she said it made sense that you would first think of a base. And I also asked Tosugi, the translator of the text, who's very knowledgeable about it, and she also said she thinks that they would need to use a base, because emptiness is the negation of true existence. In the absence of any base, how can true existence appear so that it may be negated? And that's my thought as well. I thought, just seems like you would have to at least think of one object, like yourself or your body or the table, and then understand. I mean, by the time you're an Arya, it probably wouldn't take you very long to get into the emptiness of that object. But it just doesn't seem right that you could just go straight into emptiness without first thinking about the basis of that emptiness. But this needs further investigation. So if you have a chance to ask other teachers, other scholars, then please do so. So we finished this course, and there's a little bit of time left if anyone would like to ask a question. Stephen has a question.
Thank you again. First of all, thank you for doing that research, Venerable. My question is about the Dharmakaya. And so the Dharmakaya knows all conventional phenomena, knows them directly. So does the Dharmakaya, is it able to know conceptions and even mistaken conceptions And how does it do so if it's knowing things directly and unmistakably?
So is the Dharmakaya able to know conceptions? You mean conceptions in the mind of other beings?
Yeah, I would imagine so that they could help people like me who have, well, certainly conceptions, but also a lot of mistaken conceptions.
Sure. I mean, that's my understanding. I certainly have no experience of this, but my understanding is that a Buddha's mind is able to see our minds and the minds of all sentient beings. And of course, our minds are full of all kinds of conceptions, some of which are wrong conceptions, like believing in true existence and believing in QAnon conspiracy theories and all kinds of things like that. So yeah, a Buddha can certainly see our minds and our conceptions and we know what's wrong with them, which we can't always do. So that's my understanding. So of course a Buddha can know the conceptions of others, even though the Buddha's mind doesn't have conceptions itself, because everything appears directly.
So could you say in a way they're known indirectly?
What do you mean indirectly?
Well, they're not, the Buddha's mind doesn't have a conception in it.
Yeah.
It has a direct perception of, say, my mind that's filled with conceptions and mistaken conceptions and so on. So the Buddha wouldn't know those mistaken conceptions or conceptual thoughts. They would not appear within the Buddha's mind. Is that correct?
No, my understanding is Buddha does see our minds, our thoughts, our conceptions, sees them directly with direct perception. But so Buddha can, with the direct perception, can see a conception, because a conception is just a state of mind, you know, a moment of mind with particular qualities. I mean, I really, you know, I can't really say what a Buddhist mind experiences. And I was just thinking, there's this book by Guy Newland called The Two Truths.
Right. Yeah.
And I think the last chapter of that book is talking about a Buddha's mind, in particular, how a Buddha's mind is able to know the two truths. And it's actually very complex and, you know, very difficult to explain by anybody, even the greatest scholars. So maybe you could have a look at that and see, see if there's something in there that might help you. But yeah, so that's as much as I can say about that, not having Buddha's mind myself.
I'm grateful for the explanation, Venerable. It's a little bit difficult if, well,
how can we even know what it's mind? You know, we're just the way I see it, we're speculating about something we can't really understand. We can't really know until we get there. Once we get there, then we'll know how a Buddha's mind works and perceives things.
Ida,
Somebody else?
Ida,
Oh yeah,
Ida.
Ida.
Thank you, Venerable, for the teachings. Let me see if I can word this correctly. I wasn't here on last session, but I heard the teachings on the recordings, and Stephen mentioned something about when you realize emptiness. He said there's no object or subject, and you corrected that. You mentioned that object and subject are still there. Is the duality that disappears. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, again, I have no firsthand experience of it, but what they say, how it's described in the text, is that when the mind directly realizes emptiness, this is only direct perception. It's not conceptual, inferential experience of emptiness. But when there's a direct realization of emptiness, then the sense of a separate subject over here and an object over there, you know, usually it seems like that. I'm a subject over here and looking at that object over there. There's this kind of duality. That kind of duality vanishes. And it's said that it seems as if the mind that's experiencing emptiness merges with the object emptiness. And they use the analogy of pouring water into water. So if you pour a cup of water into a pitcher of water, they just become indistinguishable. You can no longer differentiate, this water and that water. So they use that analogy to describe that experience of just the mind merging with emptiness and not having this subject-object duality. So that's all I know. I don't have that experience, but so it seems like that when you're in that state of having a direct realization of emptiness, it seems as if there is no subject and object, but there is a subject, there is a mind that is experiencing emptiness, which is its object. So there is a subject and object, but they just don't appear to be separate and differentiable. So that's why I said it isn't the case that there is no object. It just doesn't seem as if there's that subject-object duality. And then I think once you come out of that meditative state, back into a more normal state, then you have this awareness, oh, that was a direct realization of emptiness. I just became an Arya. So then you can have those kind of thoughts. I guess you would have those kind of thoughts. Okay, now I got more work to do. Now I have to get rid of the innate affliction, the innate obscuration, get back to work. So I'm just joking, but yeah. So after that experience, you would be able to look back on it and understand what had happened. But while it's happening, you don't have those kind of thoughts. You don't have the thought, oh, this is a direct realization of emptiness and I'm an Arya. Those are conceptual thoughts and they just don't happen during that experience. It's only afterwards that you would have that kind of understanding.
Thank you, Venerable.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, I really appreciate having this opportunity to go back over this material. It's been good for me. I studied this and it's been almost, I don't know, how many years? More than 10 years, I think, since I studied it. Maybe more like 12 years. And I haven't really had the chance to review it. So this has been a good review for me to remind myself of this very beautiful, precious material. So I hope it's been useful for you as well. Okay. So,
oh, go ahead, Venerable.
no, I was just going to say we can dedicate the merits unless you have something further to say, or
I do. I would like to thank you on my behalf and for the group here and the group at the Abbey. And I'm not sure if you know it, Venerable, or not, but later on in the week, there are some participants getting like an encore presentation with the Venerable Dundrup facilitating. So I'd like to thank on their behalf as well. And I would like to mention that several of us are studying with Venerable George. He's doing commentary on, oh my gosh, I'm going to say it. Madhyamaka. No, I'm not.
Madhyamaka Avatar.
Yes, thank you. I just couldn't get it out. And he mentions you quite often because he knows that we are studying with you and we'll be studying with you come September. So thank you very much.
Yeah, so in September, we'll start again with, my plan is to focus on the 37 harmonies, because I think that's what Rinpoche really wanted people to learn from the many other topics in the 4th chapter. So I think that's something quite practical, especially the 4 foundations of mindfulness. So I'm looking forward to that. Okay, so thank you so much for joining and hosting and making this happen. So let's conclude by dedicating, oh. Yeah, so we'll dedicate the merit, the positive energy of this session this evening, but we can also think of all the merit we've created for the last 3 months doing this course. And it's not easy, it's challenging, but we kept with it. And I think we've all learned something from it. So feel a sense of joy, rejoicing in what we have done, all the merit we've created, and then have the wish to share this merit with all sentient beings for our attainment of enlightenment. And also remember the 3 circles, the oneself who's created the merit and is now dedicating it, being empty of inherent existence. There's no inherently existing I, who's the creator of the merit, dedicating the merit. The merit itself is also empty of inherent existence. It's dependent on so many factors, causes and conditions, so it's not standalone, autonomous, independently existing. And then the objects we're dedicating to all sentient beings and the attainment of enlightenment. So these 2 are empty of existing inherently, independently from your own side. Could you scroll down so we can see the dedication prayers? Okay, and so dedicate for all sentient beings and also for the long lives of all our precious spiritual teachers. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. Okay, thank you. Good night.
Thank you very much again, Venerable. And let's all
Thank you,
sing "See You in
Venerable.
Thank you.